All right, everyone, we're going to get started. We've got a packed day. So looks like everybody survived the rejection therapy exercise last night. How many of you guys had fun with this exercise? Yeah, we saw that, actually. Some of you guys had a lot of fun. That's great. It looks like there's a lot of natural salespeople in the room, which is great. What we want to do before we showcase some of these rejection therapy videos is to first recap with you guys what happened yesterday. And we want to first start with a question of, what did you guys learn? Is there anything that you guys learned yesterday that was new to you?
What sticks out to you that, and it's possible that there was more than one thing, but we'll take one.
Do we have a mic? I think there's a mic in the back if we could.
Can you believe you get credit for this? No, just kidding.
I learned to kind of think creatively beforehand about what questions I was going to ask, and I didn't want to be embarrassed in the situation, and I don't want them to be too embarrassed or awkward, so something that I hoped was crazy enough without being overboard.
That was for the rejection therapy.
Okay, for the
Yeah.
So
we're talking about more
the whole class. But that's good. You learned something from the rejection.
Yeah.
You had to think through it. Yes.
Yeah. Actually, there's two parts to the quote learning here.
Yeah.
The first part is what we did until about 5 p.m. or 5:30 or whatever, and and so that's the part I'm asking about right now. But on the second part, there is this idea that you might have to ask for funding more than one time. In fact, everybody that got up here talked about how many times they get no. And so we just thought it would be good practice to feel what it's like when people say no. And the kind of magic ingredient about when people say no is before they say it, there's a lot of tension. After they say no, all they did was say no. It's done. Like, it's not really a big deal. And like overcoming that that's a...
Absolutely. And I think there's a couple of nuances to that. First of all, no is cultural. So in some cultures, people will refuse to say no because it's rude. If you've ever worked with Japanese people, they will literally say yes, even though they mean no. Watch, it's called it's Japanese yes or Japanese no. If you look on Google, it's pretty much the same thing, right? And it's very much culturally rude to tell someone face-to-face that you have a no.
There's some aversion in India, too.
So Indians are also well known to not like to say no. That's why working with development firms in India, you have to really understand whether or not it's a yes or a no. I've managed several teams in India. A no is awesome from an Indian team because you know it's a no. A yes is really scary because you don't know what's going to show up the next day. So that's one thing. Other things.
You should ask all your questions in the negative.
Then you get a double negative back. But in other cultures, saying no is not rude. If you work with Israelis, oftentimes you get a very blunt no. And the way that they view it is that giving someone a no is very efficient. And that's being really nice to someone, is letting them know so that they don't waste their time. And that's actually how I would suggest looking at no as we look at rejection. Thank someone for telling you no because they're not wasting your time. The worst thing, if you've ever talked to salespeople, to get from someone is a maybe. You want a yes, but if you don't get a yes, at least you want a no. And the worst situation is maybe because you'll lose so much time trying to get that maybe to someone of a yes or a no. Right?
One reason why you want the no, just to build on what you're saying, is because you need to know why.
Exactly.
And when, until they say no, you can't say, well, why not? If they're just saying maybe, then you're like, well, what do I do with that?
They're not sharing any usable information when they say maybe, right?
Yeah.
If they say no, they have to have a rationale. If they want to come across as intelligent, to tell you why they're telling you no, right? And then at that point, you can address it. And you can see in some of these videos, when someone gets a no, they turn around and try to adjust to it and figure out why they got the no so they can finally get a yes. So there's an art to it, and there's entire classes dedicated towards getting to a yes. There's negotiation courses and a lot of classes you'll get in business schools. This is just kind of touching on it. And what we wanted you guys to really do is feel what it felt like to get a no, right? And actually, it's not all that bad. When I was fundraising my last company, I talked to over 100 venture capitalists only to get 3 of them to say, we will give you a term sheet, right? That success rate is actually high. Typically, you'll get a much lower success rate on talking to investors, especially now because there's so many startups looking for money, right? So get used to that no, because that's going to be part of the job.
All right.
All right.
Do we have time for actually something that anyone learned? Or
yeah, because we have 15 minutes.
We would actually like your feedback. What did you enjoy or so forth from yesterday? Go ahead.
Say it gets easier.
Yep.
Did this 2 weeks ago.
Yep. Yep. So Zach went. So we teach a summer abroad in the south of France. If anyone's interested in learning more of this kind of stuff on a beach in Nice, it's going to be actually on the beach in Nice next time. It's for you guys. It's too bad, but for an entire month.
Switch that class with you.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a tough job, but somebody has to do it. And so we did this exercise in Nice, and it was tough for a lot of the kids to do. But I think what Zach's saying is that it gets easier as you're expected to do it over and over and over and over again.
What else did you like from yesterday?
Someone had, yep.
I really learned that failure is like the seed of success. And that was reinforced last night with the rejection therapy. It was frightening to go up to people and just ask like something that I figured I was going to get denied. But once I asked and I got denied, it was like empowering after that. I didn't feel so bad about asking another question. Because it was like, no, okay, I can live with that. I'm still alive. I'm still okay.
Yeah, everything is fine. In fact, there's maybe a couple of points to build on there. One is that the one that comes to my mind is that if you only ask questions to people where you know the answer is yes, think how limited you're testing the world. You know, it's like you're only operating in such a safe situation because you're like so confident that they're yes. And you never know. You just can't tell what's actually possible because you never ask something that it might be no, right? And I think the other, I'll just say this learning lesson, this is a learning lesson that I've had, is that sometimes when you ask the question where the answer might be no, you also have to give them time to say it. You got the, you know, sometimes you ask this question, you know, it might be something like, hey, you know, would you be willing to fund this activity, or, you know, could we get an approval on this? And even before they say anything, you've got this urge to say, but if it's too much trouble, or, you know, if it's not going to work, you know, or we could do it another way. Like you want to like make it safe for yourself, but you just kind of after you ask it, just stop talking. You just
so
control
Ikhlaq has
yourself.
a personal example of this. Asking donors for money, you've dropped the price in the meeting when they didn't even have a chance to say no, and they would have gone yes with the higher rate at the higher price.
That's the one example that he remembers. He doesn't remember the $20 million that was raised before that.
No,
just this one tiny little.
But that was after, right? You learned that to not drop the price. So one of the things is let people tell you no. Wait for the no before you adjust the price.
I was actually, you know, doing it for his benefit because I didn't want him to feel the rejection.
Oh, let's see. Yes, by proxy. But back to the point of, you know, how it feels is that you're so much in your own head, right? And a lot of this stuff, you gotta get out of it. It's not about you. It's about the other person. And this concept of empathy, we'll talk about a little bit later. But when it comes to rejection, how many of you guys came up with a strategy? Did you think through this process before you started going up to somebody?
So one rule that I've heard before is the 3-second rule.
Okay.
Which is you're not allowed to wait more than 3 seconds before you run up and do something that's scaring you.
Interesting.
So, like for me, I just like ran after the first person I saw and started talking. The next thing I knew, I was like, "Will you shave my armpits?"
Right.
Right.
Did you get a yes?
I actually got a yes, which was surprising.
Ah.
Oh my
So we
gosh.
started walking to Walgreens. I was like, what's going on?
Wait, do you have armpit hair still, or did you lose
I
it?
did not let them shave it because I wanted to get some other stuff.
Oh, okay. That would have been epic. All right. Anyone else come up with a strategy? So you had to turn off your brain by force functioning this 3-second rule, so that you got over the apprehension of talking to someone. Anyone else use different strategies?
Well, for us, we got a lot of rejections at first, and we were wondering, why are we getting so many rejections? And then one of the girls explained to us that she didn't want to be recorded. And so what we did was we went up to people, and instead of recording their face, we would have them stand away from us. And then we got a lot of approval afterwards.
Interesting. So what happened there? They were getting a certain kind of response. It was a trend. It was a pattern. They tried to figure out what that pattern was. They tested out whether that hypothesis was correct, that it was the camera that was the issue. And once they adjusted, they found that was the cause.
Yeah.
That's exactly the process you have to go through across all of your activities in your startup. If something's not working the way you thought it was supposed to work, then you have to be a detective and figure out what the potential causes of that was, and then adjust for it to see if you're correct, right? No assumptions can be left assumed. You have to kill each assumption, right? Anyone else? Any other? Yeah.
I just want to share, it's not about what you say, it's how you approach the people, because it's the confidence you can transmit to the other person,
Right.
Sometimes you just need to persuade the people, because the investor have a lot of projects like you.
Yep.
But it depends of you, how to present the idea and how confident you feel with your project.
Right. So this is a very difficult conversation to have, actually. People respond to different people just very differently. And it's some things that you might not be able to fully control, right? So you have to find strategies on how you yourself can be effective. Sometimes it's not the content of your words that people listen to, it's your physical approach, it's the way that you comport yourself. It could even be what you wear. When we ran this game in Mexico, one of the guys was a very large guy, and he found out that most people just did not want to talk to him when he would approach them just off the street.
Out of fear.
Out of fear,
Yeah.
right? Because he was such a large guy, and the only reason a very large guy would come and talk to this person, out of the blue, was because of, they wanted something,
Yeah.
right?
It's
And
like,
so,
will you give me money?
exactly.
Yeah,
It's like,
right.
hey, and so so he had to use different strategies to make his size actually not an issue. There are certain things where I think he used being at the bottom of a staircase as a way of shortening himself as he's talking to people coming down the stairs, right?
And also they can't escape.
Yeah.
Dual
So
purpose.
you have to understand how people perceive you and respond to you, and you have to adjust for that, right? You are going to find that men respond to requests by women more than they're going to respond to requests by men, right? Just like the girl yesterday talked about how she asked guys for kisses. They're not going to say no. They're just not going to say no, right? And one really pretty girl in Nice, she went up to people and asked them for their shirts. And you're in France. If you ask a French guy, if you're a pretty girl and you ask a French guy for pretty much anything, they're probably going to give it to you, right? So, it doesn't sound so good. But yeah, they're going to, the way that you are perceived by the people around you is going to have an impact on how this works. This is like in a sales meeting. If you're in a VC meeting, how you're dressed, what you say, what you look like. It's not actually that important that you go to a great university.
Is your point also here that you should think about who's going to make the ask? If there's 3 of you there?
Yeah. You also need to know how to ask it, who should ask it, when to ask it. I have a great example of when to ask it. My first company many, many years ago, where we were fundraising for an angel round, and we were raising about 750, and I had been meeting with this angel investor. This was my 4th or 5th meeting with this guy. I had already gotten signals from him he was in for 200K. And this was during the time people would just write a check in the meeting. So I had no excuse not to just ask this guy in the 3rd meeting. So it's like the 4th or 5th meeting, and I'm going through another update that's almost the same as the time before, and I'm feeling really good about this. And at the end, he has this this glossy look on his face, and I'm like thinking I'm doing great, and at the end I'm like, ta-da, and I'm about to ask for the money, and I'm like, I'm nailing it, and he stops me and he goes, there's 2 of you. I'm like, what? My partner's right here, and I'm sitting here. Yeah, there's 2 of you. He's like, no, there's 2 of you. And then he proceeds to tell me a story of 10 years ago, he was with his daughter, and he started feeling the same, this blurriness and kind of weird feeling. And he's like, then I went to the hospital and found out I had a stroke. And that's how I'm feeling right now. So we're looking at each other, we're like, this guy's about to stroke out and we haven't asked for the check yet. So this is me being crazy, right? Because I need the money.
Is this a lecture on empathy?
This is many lessons here, right? And so we called the hospital, and yeah, we have to bring him in. His daughter shows up and takes him to the hospital. Yeah, and we're sitting in front of his house in the car, and he has already driven off, and we're looking at each other. We're like, how could we not have asked for the check like 2 weeks ago? Because at this point, he was so embarrassed by this situation. He sent us a thank you card, but he never wanted to see us again because we reminded him of his stroke, right? So I don't ever want to be someone's reminder for a stroke ever again. But the lesson here is when the time comes, ask for it because you never know what's going to happen, right? Someone might stroke out on you, right? So.
You got a comment, question back
Yeah,
there?
one last question.
Last
Yep.
one, yeah.
Just, I want to share an experience as an entrepreneur. As you were talking, Ken, about you have to know who you're talking to. There's a great quote I love. It's if you want to achieve greatness, stop asking for permission. Thing is, there's this angel investor back in Chile, and he's really hard to get and to get a meeting with him. But the thing is, he loves when his system is being hacked. So what we did with my partner, we went up to his office, and we just sit at his office for like 4 to 5 hours, just waiting for him to come, to show up. And suddenly he shows up, and we send, and okay, we want to meet with you, we want to talk with you. Yeah, but guys, I don't have time. You do have time for us. Just give us 30 minutes. I don't work on Fridays. Stop. This is a great product. Listen to us. Okay, let's sit down. Okay, let's talk. So
you have to be bold.
Yes.
You have to be bold and persistent.
Yeah.
That is, you have to spend the time and cycles to be bold, right?
Yeah.
I think, so great, thank you for that.
But it's got to come from the inside. You
Right.
can't fake that.
Right, exactly. I mean,
If
what you did was
feel
like.
it on the inside, you can't
Yeah.
show up and start
Right.
to do it.
Right.
Okay.
And so we're gonna start with a rejection therapy video that is a true fail because they actually succeeded. Because the exercise was to send in 1 success and 1 fail. They only sent in a success. So this is actually a fail in our minds. But we thought this would be fun to watch.
That's not true.
That's what we will. Hold on.
All right.
Let's see if there's both on here.
Commentary after. Let's see what
Yeah.
it is.
Okay. Paul, what's our network? We have neighbors
Who are internet deprived.
who are internet deprived.
Do you have Comcast? Because we're
So we like.
Oh my gosh.
You want to see if we'll give you internet for your homework?
But it's killing 2 birds with 1 stone.
Uh-huh.
I'm genuinely on my homework. And secondly, I have an assignment where I have to ask people for favors.
Okay. Sure. They have to give you our internet, but not if you show them our password.
Yeah. So it's a yes, right?
Looks so sketchy.
whopping.
Do you have any aloe? Do you have any aloe vera?
What happened to your burn?
Yeah, I got a burn from Florida. So I just painted you.
It's an assignment as well. It's a homework thing.
Yeah,
it's a homework thing.
I'm trying to catch 2 birds with 1 stone. So I got a sunburn, and we also have to do a video ourselves.
Yeah.
We used to grow it.
Really?
When we lived in Florida.
Oh, wow. I'm from Florida.
Oh,
I'm in Tampa.
Yeah, you were on the East Coast. We
Oh.
were in Lake Worth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
But we got a whole lot of it growing, but not so important.
Oh.
We don't have enough. We don't have aloe vera, do we, Terry?
Oh. That's fine. That's so fine. That's okay.
Well, good luck with it.
Yeah, thanks for upstairs.
Yeah. Richard and Terry, and you guys remember you were coming in, I think, the same day when we did.
Yeah. Definitely.
Okay, so here's the thing, is that if you let people know that it's an experiment, do you think you're going to get a better response or a better response, right? Because they know what's going on with the camera, right? As their experience was, the camera freaks people out, right? And that's what we found pretty much in every country that we've run this, is that people freaked out by the camera because they don't understand what's going on. Because it changes the context, right?
Yeah, it's like the Heisenberg uncertainty.
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. So we always tell people use the camera in a way that no one knows it's happening. We're not putting it on the internet or whatever, but it's just fun to watch. When we did this in Mexico, there were some teams that just could not get a no, and they spent an hour and a half trying to get someone to tell them no. They were asking crazy things like, "Can I borrow your shoes?" And people were going down and taking their shoes off. Like, I've never seen someone actually give someone else their shoes, right? So it is culturally based. Some people in some cultures are highly responsive to this, and others, they're not as trusting, right? So you just have to find interesting ways to reach them. So we'll have more of these videos over the, yeah?
Is the same thing true for cultural differences in investors?
Yes.
Do investors say yes more often in certain countries and no?
Yeah, but it's in a different kind of way. It's a matter of how much money is in the country. So it's a demand and supply curve, right? So if I work with lots of teams in Ireland. There's only 3 venture capitalists there. They behave as if there are only 3 venture capitalists there, right? So they get really bad terms. They get very difficult meetings. So
More of a monopoly.
It's more of a monopoly, yeah. So it's more of a function of who else is in the ecosystem than something like this, right? But a lot of these guys a lot of investors you meet in your own countries will want to see how you respond to how they treat you, right? So that can be cultural.